virtual network. So physical network, we have already covered, how the cables needs to be connected on which, how the port connected, everything we have already discussed in the, uh, foundation stage. During the foundation, I said we have to connect IPMA connectivity and then data part. So IPMA will have a dedicated IPMA subnet, and then we have required subnets for the management and CVM and AHV host that all we discussed. Now we are focusing on the virtual network. So as I said, we have IPMI connectivity, and then we have a data connectivity. So for the IPMI connectivity, let's take you have VLAN ID 100, and this is going to be static, access port. Okay, so from the physical network switch side, you configure like this. Okay, when it comes to data, okay, if it is single vSwitch, then we will trunk all the required VLANs. Okay, so what I mean, we have AHV, CVM, and all the guest VMs, VLANs. Okay, and this is going to be trunk. So by default, we have a one VLAN for your AHV and CVM, and then all your guest VMs will have a different VLANs, and everything will be included into the same type of interface. I mean, it's the same set of interfaces, and we will configure the port as a trunk port. Okay, and if there are like multiple V switches, then we will allow the VLAN based on design. And then again, that's going to be a trunk interface. So trunk carries multiple, VLANs. Access port will be like it's a single VLAN. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we are moving further here. Like when I take single switch, okay. So I'll take this configuration. Single switch, trunk all the VLANs in a single set of one set of interfaces. So if we take this by default, there is a concept called, by default, it's going to be load balancing. By default, the load balancing is going to be active standby. Let's take a scenario. You have a server with 4 interfaces. You have 4 physical interfaces and 4 cables connected, or you have 2 cables connected, but all 4 interfaces will be in VS0, which is vSwitch, which is default vSwitch. Okay, so by default, a single vSwitch gets created, and all the interfaces from your host will be part of the, the single vSwitch. You may have a 2 cables connected, only 2 interfaces are connected. Okay, or 4 interfaces are connected, anything, but all interfaces by default it goes into default vSwitches, default vSwitch. That's VS0, and you can't delete the VS0. You can't delete the VS0, but you can update the VS0. So now coming back to the load balancing, by default active standby. What is the meaning of this? One interface is up and one in down. Clear?
So out of the four interfaces, the data is moving across two only.
Only two. So only two will be selected. Uh, Only one interface. I said, right, by default you can have any interface, but only one interface is active. That one interface will have the traffic, going.
Okay.
So this is the default behavior, and in this case, these but only you have even if you have four interfaces, the initial design you take two interfaces connected. Okay, you don't connect all four interfaces on single. When you set up your cluster, you don't connect all four interfaces on a day zero or day one. So later you connect it. So, but it is good to have two cables connected, even if you have four or eight interfaces, but have two interfaces connected on day zero and day one, and then later when you need more switches, you can connect the cables. So when you have two interfaces or multiple interfaces connected, you only one interface is going to be up and running, correct? Remaining thing will be in the standby state because that's how the load balancing works, active standby. So now all the VLANs will be trunked here, including CVM and AHV. So for an example, if I say ETH0 and ETH1, so one interface is active and then all the VLANs are trunked onto this. It is guest VMs and then is AHV and CVM VLANs. Okay, so now this is going to be your VS0. So you have a VS0, ETH0, ETH1, two interfaces, one interface active and one interface is down. All the VLANs will be trunked here, including CVM and AHV. This is how it works. But later, if you need more interfaces, more V switches, what you can do, you can go and create additional interfaces like VS1. You can take ETH2 and ETH3. Okay, so two interfaces. Okay, and all the required VLANs. Trunked and default active standby. You can also change this, but we will see later. Likewise, if you need more V switches, you can go and create it. And it is not necessary that you always need uplink. No, not the case. Like I can create VS2, no uplink, and it's going to be like L2 VLAN, so the traffic will never leave the host. Since you don't have interfaces, load balancing will not be applied. Active standby and these things only apply to the interfaces because and the interface there will be load balancing created, and on the load balancing this configuration will be applied. But now here we don't have any uplink to the VS2, hence it does not configure any load balancing. Make sense?
Yeah, can you repeat this? We switch two, please. Why we use this one?
No, this is just an example I'm giving. We
Okay.
are not. It's a it is a configuration you are going to perform. VS0 is the one default you have it. Remaining things are no. That's an user choice.
Right.
That's a user choice. You can create if you need it. Well, I'm giving you different example here.
Okay.
Okay. So everyone all good? Kota, Fahad, Sai.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So now what we are going to do, so I'll come back to this vSwitch, vSwitch configuration sometime. But before that, we have something to be, on the on top of vSwitches. Like in VMware, you have vSwitch, and then you have something called distributed switch. So here we have something called bridge, and for the distributed switch, we say vSwitch. This is VMware and this is AHV. Okay. So in VMware you say vSwitch, but here we say bridge. There you say distributed switch, but here we say vSwitch. In VMware vSwitch means it's not a distributed switch, but in AHV vSwitch means it's a distributed switch. Okay. So now once you have the switches created, you create the port group in VMware. Here we say VM network or subnet. Okay. So now subnet in AHV. Okay. So there are two types of subnet. One is managed subnet, and then other one is unmanaged subnet. Okay. So it's just a naming reference, nothing to be, or you can't see this in Nutanix Prism. For both same condition, it is just a naming reference. Okay. So what is the concept of this managed subnet? Question is, who is going to manage the subnet? Who is going to manage the subnet? If I say managed subnet, Nutanix is going to manage. Here, as an no, you probably I'll say you will be managing. When I say manage, what is that, right? That's the question, right? So IP allocation, DHCP or manual. Or you can say, for manual, you can say external DHCP. Okay, so here we don't say external, we don't say DHCP, we say IPAM or, external IPAM. What is IPAM? IPAM in the sense, IP address
Management.
management. Okay, so who is going to manage the IP address allocation? That's a question. Who is going to manage the subnet, but who is going to manage the IP allocation? Do you want to manage by yourself, or you want to use some external, DHCP server or IPAM server like efficient IP or info blocks, or you want to let your Nutanix to manage that? If you say that you want Nutanix to manage the IPAM service, then you have to take manage subnet. Because I already said manage subnet in the sense Nutanix is going to manage. What it is going to manage? IP allocation. Okay, and as I said, you can't see these names in the, you can't see these options in the Nutanix Pro portal. It's just a reference, naming reference. When you create a subnet, you have to use this prefix. It's not mandatory. It's again, it's for our reference only. You can give any name, and only thing is, if you want manage subnet, you have to go and enable IPAM service. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, if you enable, that's a managed subnet. Nutanix will manage the IP allocation. If you, yeah, if you uncheck the IPAM service while creating a subnet, then it's going to be, unmanaged network. But generally, we follow this naming convention because so that we get a clear understanding by looking at the subnet, we see that, or we tell them that, hey, this is IPAM, this is not IPAM. How? When I use this name prefix managed underscore VLAN 100, unmanaged underscore VLAN 100. So same VLAN, you can have two subnets, right? Manage and unmanaged. So I will follow this. If I follow this naming convention, it will be easy for me to understand. Again, this is only for ourselves, not for the system. So I don't think that there should be an option to go, select manage and unmanage. No options. It's only for naming reference. If you don't provide, you can't see anywhere. Okay. But how do you let system to know this? We have an option, IPAM. We have to check the box and we have to provide the IP ranges, like from the pool, right? From this IP to this IP, I'm reserving for this DHCP. So when I enable IPAM, it's a IP address allocation, IP address management. So what happens? It is similar, like it is a DHCP, right? So when I enable this, I need a DHCP server to run. So internally, DHCP server created. That DHCP server will take care of this. So for every subnet, we will be having kind of a DHCP server running in the CVM. So service to take care of this is no, there is a service called Acropolis. So Acropolis, there is a master, right? Master and slave. The Acropolis master will host the DHCP server. And DHCP server requires IP address, correct? So the IP address will be picked up from the provided, range. So for every subnet, you're creating some ranges, right? From there, the last IP will be reserved for DHCP server. You can also customize your DHCP server IP. Now back to you. Any question here? Did you understand this, guys, or no?
Yes, I can understand.
Thank you, Sai. But what about others?
Trying
Sharon,
to
all good?
follow, not clearly understanding.
Okay, no problem. I'll explain again. Lalit, your voice is very low. It was clear. Somehow I got your point, but not clear. Fine. Fahad,
Yeah, Paul, the last point, Acropolis Master, I didn't understand.
is that not clear?
Yeah, that is not clear.
Okay, I'll tell you what is this. Sharon, I hope all good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, Acropolis is a service, okay? Acropolis. What is the role of Acropolis? Anybody can remember? Service running inside CVM. It's generally for host management, correct? Right. I said during the service cluster services, we explained this. Acropolis is one of the services running inside the CVM. Okay. And I already said there are a lot of services running inside CVM, Prism, Curator, Stargate, Cassandra, Medusa, Pithos, Hates. I think last week we discussed all these services, right? There is a service called Acropolis as well. This is generally used for host management, like creation of VM, and we have something called ACLI, Acropolis CLI, right? So all that, this service will take care of that. So when I give, when I need, IP address assigned automatically to my guest VM. I need a DHCP server. So I'm looking for a service. Hey, which service can take this, responsibility? I need someone to take care of this responsibility. So Acropolis is ready to do that. And now, Acropolis take care of this. When I enable this, we already discussed for every service we have a master and slave. So Prism, there is a master. Likewise, for Acropolis, there is a master service. So that service will host the DHCP server internally. Okay. And that will take care of for every subnet internally. It maintains the database like what IPs are free, what IPs are assigned, and what is the subnet detail. Everything it maintains, but we have to provide this information in the GUI. So when we provide it at the backend, it takes and it configure to the guest VMs. Okay. If the master goes down, another master will be elected, and that master will continue the same role. Acropolis is a service. Clear?
So all this will be happening within the cluster.
Yes, it's only within the cluster, not outside the cluster. So every cluster internally, there should be a Acropolis running. So that takes care of it.
Oh,
Guys, clear?
Yes, Paul.
yeah, Paul, it's clear.
Okay. Everyone?
Paul, one more thing, like